Hey guys, Kyle, the Death Knight of Anime here, bringing you my review for Fire Force Episode 4, which pretty much is the final episode that marks the end of the Asakusa Arc. And and before I even get into the review itself, I have a bit of a weird story to tell you guys. As you pretty much know, when it comes to me, or I guess any kind of anime reviewer, a lot of the times what we'll end up do is during the episode we'll basically pick a point in the episode in order to take a screen cap, and we'll basically and we'll pretty much use that and we'll basically and we'll pretty much use that pretty much screen cap as the cover photo that basically advertises our pretty much review. But oddly enough, when I was in the middle of taking my screen cap for this episode, like the screen cap itself, it always turned up completely black, and keep in mind when I was taking these screen caps, I was mostly taking them on Crunchyroll. But when I moved over to Kiss Anime in order to get my screen cap, it worked fine. So I'm not sure if it's like a Crunchyroll thing or what's going on, but yeah, that it was a very weird experience. Let me tell you that much. So yeah, just a fun little story. But even before I got into the review itself, um, and but all right. So getting into the review itself, it's pretty safe to say that this episode marked a turning point for Benimaru's character, as he finally stepped up to the plate and fully accepted his role as both the leader of Company 7 as well as the definitive protector of pretty much Asakusa. And this is definitely what you could call this is what you could basically refer to as the boiling point, as it's been painfully clear for a while now that pretty much Benimaru had some severe insecurities. Had a lot of severe insecurities when it came to stepping into pretty much either role. He was just a guy who wanted to live in Asakusa and just and protect people if they needed it, but. And which is also the reason as to why so many times throughout this arc he would always look to Conroe in order to take the in order to take the in order to take it up in order to take up the role as a leader. And yet ironically enough, in the White-Clad's attempt in order to destroy Company 7, this mass fire was the kind of thing that was needed in order for Benimaru to unite both Company 7 and Asakusa together. So he inevitably just kind of bit the bullet and stepped up to the plate and became the leader that pretty much everyone in Asakusa, including Conroe, knew he could be. And on a comedic level, I love how basically the plan that was used in order to get rid of all the fakes was just a straight up slugfest. I don't know why, but just something so brutally there was just something so brutally honest about that plan that just made me love it. Just so brutal and straightforward, and yet I just loved it for that. Like it was such a straightforward plan. From no complications or no just like well like pretty much or just no like pretty much or just no like any kind of detailed aspect to it. Just like yeah, just punch everyone. Which again, when it comes to what we've gotten to know and what we've gotten to know of the citizens of Asakusa and whatnot, it works. It freaking works. Um, Now, this was a pretty good episode. In fact, I think there were even times where where there are times in certain scenes where they might have extended a scene here and there. So yeah, it was definitely a good adaptation. The other part of it though is that pretty much is that there were definitely moments here and there where they actually trimmed the dialogue again. But one thing I will say and is that compared to other times where they've done that or they've trimmed the dialogue or just cut the dialogue out completely, this episode it was handled a little better in the sense where in the sense where where the dialogue that was cut wasn't entirely important, like details or anything like that. And when they and the points where they did cut something out, it and in any point you could probably consider to be an important point. I think cutting it out, it actually showed, it actually allowed for moments in order to shine better, even without the dialogue. Like there were moments where there was supposed to be dialogue, but they cut the dialogue out where the scene, it suddenly felt a lot more. It suddenly felt a lot more impactful by cutting out the dialogue. So yeah, and overall a pretty good adaptation. I suppose that the one thing I will say against the adaptation though is that near the end of the it was from near it was basically in from the end of the chapter, and it was the end of the episode, and what could be considered like pretty much the post credit scene, like pretty much that pretty much entire post credit scene is probably the one weird aspect of the is the one weird aspect, I guess, of the episode, because is because they and only because they kind of cut a little bit of is because they cut out a scene and just kind of and reworked a lot of scenes in that particular ending, or like I said, post credit scene. But other than that, like, yeah, the adaptation was pretty good. Um, Art and animation though, what art and animation, like pretty much compared to last week though, and like compared to these last couple of weeks, art and animation was a little bit more was a little bit more of a hit and miss factor with this episode though, because while I'd say a good from 75 or 80% of this episode was amazing art and animation wise, there was still that small percentage where they did kind of drop the ball, and it was mostly in scenes where that were pretty much severely graphic in the manga, like pretty much in that moment where we see Shinra having that vision with his legs, with his legs being with his legs being reduced to like pretty much charred bones. Like, don't get me wrong, that scene in itself, it was pretty scary, but at the same time, it was kind of severely toned down, at least when compared to the manga. So yeah, I suppose in some way they are kind of still doing a little bit of censorship, but I will admit any kind of censorship they seem to be doing is pretty much still better than what we pretty much had before. At least they're showing it. Let's put it that way. And yeah, we got a pretty major reveal in this episode that Shinra's power has the ability to destroy humanity. And in the translation I saw when I was reading this material, when we pretty much see that pretty much girl of the White-Clad like pretty much say this dialogue, it was when I was pretty much reading it, the translation I read was that she pretty much said that Shinra's power had the ability to destroy souls. So it's an obvious mistranslation, I guess, but in context of how this whole thing reaches its conclusion, I can't help but feel that the whole line of destroying souls does work a little better. But I'm not going to argue with the official translation. Like the official translation here was that Shinra's power has the ability to destroy humanity. But in the translation I read, it was the ability to destroy souls. But I suppose either one works. But yeah, I do kind of wonder if the whole soul thing works a little better. And talking about the. And since we're talking about the white-clad girl in this episode, one thing I found very interesting in this whole finale is when you pretty much see the white-clad girl's reaction to when you see the white-clad girl's reaction to pretty much Shinra being so willing in order to save everyone of Asakusa with his power. It showed, like, in that scene of her just kind of viewing the whole experience. It shows how easily a simple thing like when it comes to beliefs and ideologies, can definitely warp a person's worldview. And while this episode isn't like saying anything outright that religion is bad or anything, at the same time, you can't deny it. It is showing the dangers of what can happen when you make something as simple as religion or beliefs or ideologies. It does show the dangers of what happens when you end up making that stuff that like forms the core of what defines you. Like it makes you it is gonna warp it is gonna warp a lot of your worldview and whatnot. So yeah, it's in like when it comes to the White-Clad, we're definitely getting a very interesting cautionary tale out of them for sure. Um, but yeah, guys, that's all I got for this review. If you enjoyed the video, like, comment, subscribe. Follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and Mr. Crunchyroll. Death Knight of Anime, signing off. Later, guys.